So good evening, everyone. So I'm from the management of CDP Networks. So this is to inform that today we have the last lecture of VMware training, which is the free training which is going on. So from next weekend, that is from 16th of December, we will start the paid batch, which will be a deep dive into what you are learning right now. So it will be a more advanced version of the essentials which you are learning right now. So this essential which is happening right now is a free lab, as you know, free class, and it will get over today. And from next weekend, we'll be starting the paid batch. So the cost of that batch for those who are attending this free course will be 15,000 rupees, or if you are an international candidate, it is around $200. And so this is the 50% discount for only those who are attending the free sessions. So as you can see on the screen, these are the things which are included in the paid session which we are offering. So we will be having hands-on labs, we'll be providing the rack sessions and things like that. Also, your feedback is very important for us. So please give us feedback. The link for the feedback is already shared in the WhatsApp group. We'll also share the link for feedback in the chat box here. Also give us review in Google. And the pre-booking has already started, so you can enroll for the pre-booking. The link also will be shared with you in the WhatsApp group as well as here in the chat box. So please try to avail this fantastic opportunity of learning from our very renowned trainer who is in this business of teaching and VMware since many years. As you have already seen how well our sir is teaching, so this sir will only teach the same session, and he'll give you a more deeper version of what is required as per the industry standards and so on. I hope to see you all there as well in the session which is happening next weekend. Okay, so thank you. And our trainer will, give you a brief of the syllabus which he'll be covering in the session which is going to start from next weekend. So you'll get an idea, what things in the advanced version you'll be getting. So if you have any doubt regarding that syllabus and any other thing related to the content which our trainer will be presenting, you can definitely ask your doubt to him. So over to our trainer.
I think few folks have queries. If any query you have, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello, sir.
Go for it.
Yeah, sir. What I mean is, from 16 December, I will have some problem because event is coming and I'm going for a leave this one. When is the next batch going to happen? Like, say, it will be very much better for me if it was in mid-January or something like that. Because December, this one, you understand all the pending leaves and all. It is a mandatory this one for us not to go to office and we have vacation in advance. Okay. So, so far, your this one is concerned. Is any batch going to come after December, like say, I think from mid January or something like that? Because I don't think that I will be able to join in this coming class of December. Okay. You understand? Because Christmas, this and all is coming, right?
So if I get your question correctly, I think you are asking about the batches timing and the future batches which is supposed to happen.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, so we have already planned the batch which is going to start from 16th, but I suggest this won't be the last batch. So we will be continuing these batches of free training and paid training in the coming months as well. So if you are not available this time, this month, Of course,
Mhm.
you can contact us and we will inform you when our next batch will start.
Fine.
So definitely it will happen in the month of January, February, and so on. So if you're not available during that time, uh,
Mhm.
definitely you can, come back to us. We'll get your information and we'll tell you, so and so batch will start again in January, in February. As of
Nice.
now, we have already planned this session, which is going to start next weekend. And
Mhm.
after this, we will also announce future batches. So just be in touch with us. Be in the WhatsApp group, our Telegram group. Definitely, you will get the information on the future batches. So if you're not available this time, please come back to us and we'll be happy to share the details with you for the
Fine.
next.
Fine. Fine.
Okay? Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So any other queries if you have related to uh, anything other than the syllabus, I'm here to answer your queries uh, for the those guys.
Peter, I think you have a question. If you would like to unmute yourself and ask, go for it. So, Lokesh, what would happen is official certification from VMware is not possible after this training because we are not an authorized institute. For an authorized institute, you would have to pay close to about 70,000 rupees INR. Okay. So this is a batch to impart you knowledge. And after this batch, you would have a certificate, maybe from CDP, but not a VMware certificate. CDP might give you a certificate that yes, you have taken a training from us, but keep in mind that's not an official certificate from VMware. Okay. Does that answer your question, Lokesh?
Okay, so
Um,
Dhanaka Reddy has some question about the amount. He's saying that it is, he can't afford that as of now. So please contact us personally, and we'll see what we can do from our side. uh, we also work in part payments, so let us see how we can help you better to know exactly what is your need regarding the amount which you are saying. Okay, so we are here to help you any way possible, so please get in touch with one of our sales guys. They will provide you with a solution if you're not okay with the amount to pay. Okay, so let us see what we can do from our side.
The batch which is starting from 16th December, is it a weekend batch or all weekdays batch?
It is a weekend batch.
Okay. But the if it is going to be weekend batch, then are you going to be off on the year end or the Christmas time,
uh,
no,
or it will be
we'll
continued?
continue our classes.
Okay.
For week only two classes, right? The weekend only, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, Saturday, Sunday, right?
yes.
The same what we are previously we follow the same and continue with the future also. If it is offer, right?
Yes.
If it is part payment is available, just let me know. Or else what will the procedure? You need to contact with the part payment.
Sure, sure. So you can contact one of our sales guy, or I'll just take your information. What is your name, sir?
Until
Senthil, na? Okay, okay. Okay. So we'll contact.
I'm not one thing. I am not from India.
Okay.
I'm from Bahrain now. I'm working with Bahrain now.
Okay. No problem. That's not an issue. Yeah. We'll contact you, Senthil.
Yeah.
So Vikas, sir, I request you to start with the syllabus. Yeah.
As always, if anyone has any question, feel free to interrupt. Okay. I am sharing my RDP window. I hope you guys are able to view it. Okay. Now, I will be basically teaching you whatever VMware says officially. Okay. So if you would go to VMware website and basically if you would go to this link, let me share it on the Zoom chat with you all. So this is the official course from VMware. So VMware says that if you would like to learn vSphere, install, configure, manage, this is what you need to know. Now, there are many things that they are not teaching over here. So for example, when you go to the storage section, they are not basically talking about storage DRS. Okay. They're not talking about data store cluster. They have completely missed that part. Okay. They are not talking about uh, how network port binding would happen. There are so many other things that they are not talking about. For example, PSOD they are not talking about. They are not talking about host profiles, and there are so many other things that they are not talking about. Okay. However, I will be covering all those in my batch. Okay. So if I show you the environment, so there are many things that we will be doing, which they have not mentioned over here. So one of being a data store cluster, which you can basically come to the storage section, and then when you go over here, you have an option of creating a new data store cluster. So this is a huge topic. However, they have completely skipped it. Then you have the options of SIOC, NIOC. They've completely missed all those points over here. They're not even mentioning about all these points over here. They have mentioned all those points in a advanced training of VMware. However, I would be covering all those topics over here. So just to let you know, whatever they have mentioned over here, this is something that I will cover. However, there are few things that they have not mentioned over here, and I will be covering those as well. Okay. Like when the screen was shared earlier, during the training and after the training, we will help you on how to put what points on the resume, how to look for a job, how do you prepare yourself, for an interview, what are the things that you need to take care of. So, and if there are any opportunities, we'll basically let you know about it so that, you can apply for those opportunities or follow those folks on the people, follow those folks on LinkedIn. So all these, guidances, we will be definitely be sharing with you. We would have a WhatsApp group wherein, we would post a lot of questions, preparing yourself, a lot of opportunities that you can reach out. Okay. Of course, you have the hands-on lab, and you can always reach out to us for further queries. So this is what I'm going to cover. Any doubts, any confusions, any questions, let me know. Okay. So today, I need to basically tell you something in theory that I've not talked about earlier. Let me tell you that. And let me begin, with the topic virtual machine. So first, I would like to tell you. So you remember last time we had initiated the installation of the vCenter. Now, what would happen is when your vCenter gets deployed, okay. So when you have to log into the vCenter for the very first time, it will be SSO credentials which can log in. So you remember that, when we were deploying the vCenter, we talked about that, you would have a credentials which will be administrator at vSphere.local because this is your SSO domain. So the person who has the complete right to make any changes or to log into the first time to the vCenter, it is basically administrator at vSphere.local. Okay. So always keep this in mind that you have to first log in with this credential. Okay. And the password that you specified during the installation, this guy will have the complete control. Now, once you have logged in, like I showed you yesterday, you have to create your site. That is where your ESXis are. And then accordingly, you can divide them in the clusters. I mean, you can have a production cluster or you can have a development cluster. Now, when you have to add an ESXi in the cluster, you will basically right click on the cluster you would go to the option of add host. Here you can enter the IP address or the FQDN. Here you would enter the username as root and then the password. Okay. You will hit the next button and then basically you will finish the wizard and the ESXi will get added. Now the question is, what happens when you add the ESXi? Okay, let me answer that question. Let me draw something and then show it to you. So for example, I have deployed my vCenter. Okay. Now in my environment, let's say I have got a lot of physical ESXis and I need to add them to the vCenter. Okay. Now this is a one-time manual activity that you have to do. That is all the ESXis in your environment that you have, they need to be added to the vCenter. This is a one-time activity that you have to do. Okay. However, it is important to know that what happens in the background. Okay. So when you add your ESXi to the vCenter, vCenter will basically push an agent. So what will happen is vCenter will automatically push an agent to every ESXi host. Okay. What is the agent which is getting pushed out? It is basically called vPXA. So when you add ESXi to the vCenter, vCenter will automatically push out an agent. The name of the agent which automatically gets installed on every ESXi is basically called a vPXA agent. This is the name of the agent. Okay. The vCenter that you install has many services. However, the most important one is called the vPXD. The core vCenter service is called vPXD. The agent that it pushes to every ESXi is basically called a vPXA. Do not confuse yourself with vPXD and vPXA. Okay. The internal name of the service, the core vCenter service is vPXD. And the agent, when you're adding ESXi to the vCenter, will automatically get pushed over the network is called basically vPXA. Okay. Now, question is, why is it pushing the agent? Let me answer that question. We know that, an agent will be pushed out, but the question is why? Okay, let me answer that why question for you. You as an end user, you would basically log into vCenter. Okay. So like I mentioned, to manage your complete VMware environment, you would only log into one URL. From there, you're going to you're going to modify, manage, do everything from there. And that's basically the vCenter URL. Okay. Now, when you log into the vCenter URL, yesterday we saw that you could add up till 2,500 ESXis. So you might have a big site in Singapore, and there you might have up to maximum 2,500 physical boxes. All those 2,500 physical boxes can be managed from one vCenter URL. Okay, so from one portal, from one browser tab, you can manage such a huge environment. Okay, but the question is, when you have logged into the vCenter, and let's say you tell the vCenter that you would like to create a virtual machine. Okay. So when you give the commands, you will tell basically vCenter that I would like to create a virtual machine, give 2 vCPUs, give 8 GB RAM, and give 50 GB hard drive. This is what you will tell the vCenter. Now, what vCenter is going to do? vCenter will basically talk to the vPXA agent, which is residing on the ESXi. Okay. So the vCenter will tell the vPXA, you need to create a virtual machine on this ESXi with this configuration. What vPXA is going to do? vPXA is going to talk to the agent host D. Okay. What is host D? When you install ESXi, on every ESXi, there is a agent, there is a service which is already running, which is called host D. Host D is the service which is actually doing the job. For example, vPXA will tell host D, you need to create a virtual machine for me. These are the specifications. Create a virtual machine with 2 vCPUs, 8 GB RAM, and 50 GB hard drive. Host D will say, okay, it will go ahead and create a virtual machine over here. It will give 2 vCPUs, 8 GB RAM, and 50 GB hard drive. Then this information is passed back to VPXA. VPXA gives it back to the vCenter, and then vCenter gives it back to the end user that your virtual machine has been created. This is the communication workflow. So this is why it is very important that vCenter has to push out a VPXA agent, which is basically residing on every ESXi. And this VPXA agent will get installed automatically when you add the ESXi to the vCenter for the very first time. It's only a one-time activity. Doubts, confusion, question? Okay. Now, we know about the background procedure, what is happening in the background and why this agent is getting installed. Okay. The question is, now how do I create a virtual machine? Or let me answer the question, what is a virtual machine? Okay. So like I mentioned, there is only one physical component when it comes to VMware. Okay, there is only one physical component. Which is that physical component? ESXi. This is the only physical machine that you will have, anything physical. Okay. Why vCPU and not NCPU? What is NCPU? Sharif, I did not get your question. Can you
I
unmute
mean,
yourself? Uh-huh.
yeah, 2 or 4. N means like 2, 4, 3. When we talk
Absolutely.
about our laptop or
Absolutely. Yeah. Any number that you would like to give, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 100, 200, whatever you want, you can give those numbers. No problem.
yes, when it comes to the vCPU, virtual machine concept, we talk about like n number of CPUs. But in our physical machines like laptop, we have only one CPU, right?
So what would happen is, basically what you're saying is that if you have a physical server, let's say that you buy a physical server from HP. Now HP might give you one CPU, they might give you two CPUs. Generally, they will give you two CPUs. Okay. Now on that CPU, you might have, for example, 4 cores. Here you might also have 4 cores over here. Okay, so this is CPU 1, it has 4 cores. This is CPU 2, this has 4 cores. Now here you have 4 cores here and you have 4 cores here. Total you have 8 cores. Now you might have hyper-threading enabled over here. So this would make basically 16 logical processors. Okay. So when you have 16 logical processors on your physical ESXi, when you create a virtual machine, you can give a maximum of 16 vCPUs only. You cannot go beyond the logical processor limit. You get my point?
Yes, thank you.
Now let me show you a real demo for this. So this will clarify your doubt. This is my physical machine that I have in my lab. Okay. How do I see the VP? How do I see the physical information? So when you choose your ESXi, go to the configure tab and then come down, you will see hardware, and under hardware, you will see overview. Okay. Come to the overview, and now you see over here processor information. This is the processor which is running on my physical machine. This is the processor speed. How many processor sockets are there? There is only one. This means physical CPU, there is only one on this machine. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Cores per socket. So I have only one CPU, but how many cores are there? For 20. Okay. Now hyper-threading is active. That makes it 20 into 2, 40. Okay. Now, when I create a virtual machine, or if I have an existing virtual machine, let me quickly create a virtual machine and show it to you what will happen. So for example, if I create a virtual machine, and I'll come to all these topics later, but I just want to show you something. If I go to CPU, I cannot go above 40. You see the number? It's limiting me to 40. Why? Because the logical processors on that ESXi are 40. So whatever you have on your physical ESXi, you cannot go beyond that. All right. You get the point, Sharif?
Yep. Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, coming back to the point. So yeah, so let's talk about virtual machines. Okay, so when I talk about virtual machine, okay, always remember this is a, as the name suggests, this is a virtual machine. This is not a physical machine. Now, when something is not physical, when something is virtual, it is basically made up of files. So if someone asks you, what is a virtual machine? Of course, virtual machine is a logical representation of a physical server. That is what the expected answer is. Virtual machine is also made up of files. So basically, virtual machine is nothing but a group of files combined together. That is basically called a virtual machine. Okay. Now, how do we create a virtual machine? To create a virtual machine, you can log into the ESXi, and from there you can create a virtual machine. Or the regular way from where everyone will do it is basically the vCenter. Okay. Because keep in mind, like I told you, vCenter gives you two capabilities. The first capability is central management. You basically log into one console. So you basically log in over here on one console. This is my vCenter URL. And from here, I can manage everything, my virtual machine, my ESXi, my storage, my networking. I can do anything and everything. Okay. You remember I told you that, if you deploy additional appliances like HCX, you can even manage those from here. All these different options you have over here, and you can, keep adding different products over here, and then you can keep navigating over here. So this is all that you can do. You see over here, you can basically go to the HCX portal, and you can basically, that machine is not up right now. That is why it says no healthy upstream. But if that HCX virtual machine was up, I would have been able to manage the entire HCX console. So basically, vCenter is a component from where you can manage your entire virtual infrastructure. So the very important point, why do I need a vCenter, is because of central management, one place to manage everything. The second point is basically advanced functionality. Okay, so I will be talking more about this later, but this is another feature, another requirement that why would you need a vCenter? Okay. Now the question is, if you have to create a virtual machine, you can even do it from the ESXi, or you could also do it from the vCenter. But think about it. If you have 2,500 ESXis in your environment, would you happen to know that, what is the utilization of the ESXi, or on which ESXi I should log in and create a virtual machine? Is that okay? Is that not okay? So you generally do not log into the ESXi and create the virtual machine. I'm saying that technically, if you want, you can do that. Nobody's stopping you technically. But logically or theoretically, or I should say, from the management point of view, do you do that? No, you don't do that. Okay. To create a virtual machine, to manage your environment, you basically always log into vCenter. This is the one URL. As a VMware administrator, you would go to your office for 9 hours or 8 hours, depending on the location, how many hours you work in your office. And basically all the 8 hours, you will be basically looking at the vCenter URL. This is the only one screen, that you will have in your life as a VMware admin. Open vCenter URL and keep doing things from there. Okay. So basically anything and everything that you want to do, you will basically do it from the vCenter. Technically, you can do it from the ESXi, but theoretically and professionally, no one does it because it is too complicated. Guys, just to let you know, this training is for you. If you have any questions, please ask. If you don't ask, then I would have to presume that you understand, because we are not in a live class. So yeah, that's the pros and cons of training on a Zoom. Okay. Now, how do I create a virtual machine? So to create a virtual machine, basically what you need to do is just go to the ESXi that you have, make a right click over here, and then click on the first option that you see, new virtual machine. Now, when you choose your ESXi, you also have this actions button over here. You can also click over here and you will basically get to see the same thing. Okay. So you basically make a right click over here or you click on the actions button. It's one and the same thing. There is no difference over there. Okay. What all these options are, we will talk about it as we go. But right now we are concerned with the options, new virtual machine. Now, when it comes to creating a virtual machine, there are a lot of options over here. You see all these options? You can create a virtual machine from all these options. Again, we are not concerned with all these options over here. Okay, just think about it. They are not here. We are only concerned with the first option for now. What the other options are, I'll talk about it, but not now. If I talk about it now, you will get confused. Okay, so I don't want to talk about it right
So I
now.
have
Right now,
one question.
go
I have
for it.
one question. The question is that is there any special requirement, right? Like I need a Xeon processor or higher requirement processor for the virtual machine to uh, to create the ESXi.
Now, you are getting confused, Adnan. There are two different things that you're bringing up. The first
Exactly.
thing that you brought up is ESXi.
Right.
Now, you tell me what is an ESXi?
ESXi actually is a process or environment to create the virtual machine.
Correct. It is an hypervisor.
Hypervisor, right?
Is this a physical machine or is this a virtual machine?
No, no, it's a virtual machine. It's totally virtual.
ESXi is a virtual machine?
Uh, ESXi maybe physical. The means it's a physical machine. We can uh, create the virtual environment
Correct.
by it.
But ESXi itself, is it physical? Is it virtual?
It's a physical machine.
Correct. So now you understand what ESXi is. It is a hypervisor. It is a
Right.
physical machine. And basically, ESXi gives me the capability to create virtual machines. So far, so
Right.
good? Okay.
Right.
Now, to create a virtual machine, you need an ESXi, correct? So
Right.
when you have to deploy an ESXi, you will have an HP server or a Dell server or an IBM server, some server you will have. In that server, you will have a processor. Okay. The
Standalone
process,
server.
yeah,
We have.
just
I
take
need.
this, for example, let's say one single server I have. Okay, one HP server I have. Every server will come with a processor, right?
Right.
Now, here you can have an Intel processor or you can have an AMD processor. Okay. Now VMware is also supporting Ampere. There is a new processor company which is called Ampere. It is even supporting that. So any processor that you put on your physical machine, end of the day, virtual machine will be utilizing this processor only. Whatever you give, the same kind of capability you will have. Okay. If you want to make a cake, if you put a lot of chocolate, a lot of sugar, a lot of dry fruits, you bake it well, you put a lot of milk, the tastier the cake will be. And if you make a cake and only put water and flour and just make it up, I mean that's the taste that you're going to get. So what you put, the ingredients, what you put in a dish, the tastier it will be. Same is applicable with ESXi. The more CPU, the better the CPU, the faster the CPU, the latest the CPU that you will put, the RAM, the storage, the network card on your physical machine, the same way your virtual machines will respond. You get my point?
Exactly.
You have any questions?
No. Not at all. ESXi, but the hypervisor. They think the hypervisor is it virtual or physical? I'm not. I'm confused about it.
So when you have an HP server, and if I ask you to install Windows 10 on it, what will you do?
I'll install a CD to uh,
The HP server,
start
and
the.
then you will install it. This is what you
Yes.
will do, right?
Right.
Is Windows 10 physical or virtual?
Windows 10 is a physical thing.
Right. Similarly, on an HP server, You will take ESXi as an ISO image and you will install on the physical server.
Right.
So what is ESXi? Physical or virtual?
ESXi physical.
Similarly, just like Windows 10 gets installed on the server directly, similarly, ESXi is also getting installed on the server directly. You get the
Exactly.
point?
Right.
Any other question?
No, it's okay.
You are saying during that installation, you are putting that root password in the ESXi, right?
Your voice was breaking a lot. I could not understand you.
Am I audible now?
No, your voice is breaking.
Okay. Am I
Yeah,
clear?
yeah, go for it. Ask your question.
Yeah. What I mean to say, when you are loading the ESXi on the
Hmm.
server, you have to give a root password, right?
Hmm.
Now, in case you forgot this one of ESXi, is
Hmm.
there any way to regain it, or we have to reload the
Yes,
ESXi?
you can check VMware KB articles. They talk about recovering the root password.
Okay, so option is there, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just Google up. You will get a lot of options over there.
Thank you. Let me proceed, sir.
Okay. So when I talk about virtual machine, what is a virtual machine? It is basically a group of files. Okay. Now, how do I create a virtual machine? So to create a virtual machine, all that you need to do, you need to log into your vCenter, make a right click on your ESXi, click on the option new virtual machine. You have a lot of options. We will be talking about them later. For now, we are concerned with the first option over here, create a new virtual machine, and hit the next button. It is asking you to give a name to the virtual machine. Okay, anything that you create like a Windows 10 machine, when you deploy, when you install the operating system, it basically asks you that, what is the name that you would like to have. Now, in your environment, you will have hundreds and thousands of virtual machines. They cannot have the same name. They need to have a different name. So here you need to mention what is the name of your virtual machine that you will have. Okay. Here the name should be unique. If it's a common name that is already existing, then it will give you an error. So for example, I'll say CDP demo 01. I can give anything. Let me keep this name. Now it will say that, end of the day, where will a virtual machine run? A virtual machine will always run on a physical ESXi. Okay, always keep in mind, a virtual machine will always run on a physical ESXi. Why? Because virtual machine needs CPU, memory, network, and disk. These four components are needed by virtual machine to run. Who will give these components to virtual machine? It's the ESXi. Okay. So always keep in mind, when you have to run a virtual machine, it will always run on any ESXi. So in your environment, you might have 2000 ESXis. So the virtual machine at a maximum can only run on one ESXi. It is not possible that you can have a virtual machine which can be running on two ESXi. So you might have a VM01 and you might have an ESXi01 and you might have an ESXi02. So this is absolutely not possible that the virtual machine can take CPU from here, memory from here, network from here. This cannot happen. Okay. A virtual machine can only run on one ESXi. That is it. In your environment, you might have 100,000, 2,000 ESXis, but one virtual machine can only run on one single ESXi at a given time. Okay. So if when you are creating the virtual machine, you need to specify on which ESXi it should run. If you want VMware should take care of it, in your environment, you might have 50 ESXis. And you don't want to, specify that on which ESXi it should run. You say that VMware, you can basically take the control, whichever ESXi you think is feasible, you can run over there. That is something that you can also do as well. Okay. But always keep in mind, one virtual machine, a single virtual machine, can only run on one ESXi. It cannot run on multiple ESXis. Okay. Can one Windows 10 license be enough for other VM Windows 10? It depends on your license key that you have. If you have a volume license key, if you have a license which is basically Microsoft is allowing you that, same license key can be used on other Windows 10 machines. So it basically depends on Microsoft. If it's a server operating system, then you can have a data center edition, which will basically let you other Windows machine on the same ESXi with the same license key. But this is something you need to check with Microsoft. How many ESXis I can run on one hardware? Adesh, if you have one laptop, how many Windows 10 you plan to run on it? Amjad, okay, you tell me, if you have one laptop, how many Windows 10 would you run on it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many Windows 10 you plan to run on it? Come on, guys, unmute yourself. 1. Great. Similarly is the case with ESXi. On one hardware, you will only install ESXi once. Okay. You will not install it multiple times. When you buy a laptop from HP, when you buy a laptop from Dell, they would say that the Windows 11 is already installed on it. How many Windows 11 are they installing on their laptop? It's only one. If you buy a laptop from HP and they say that Windows 11 is included on it, how many Windows 11s are they giving you? It's only one, right? Similarly is the case. You will install the operating system only once. Okay, coming back to the point over here. So, buddy, you can do anything that you feel like. If I talk about like, this is to the answer of Bus for Rajra, you can do anything that you feel like. But in production, are you going to do this? Are you going to dual boot your physical machine?
No.
Right? So if you're not going to do it in production, why would you do it on the ESXi? End of the day, ESXi is your physical machine, a production machine on which you're running production virtual machines. Okay. So technically, you can do a lot of things, but professionally, would you do that? That's a question. Okay. Now, when you are creating a virtual machine, I basically told you that, there are 4 things that a virtual machine needs: CPU, memory, network, and hard drive. Now, the first 3 components will be given by the ESXi on which the virtual machine is running. And the 4th hard drive, I told you that it needs to reside on a data store. Okay. So in my yesterday's class, I told you about a data store, on how we create it. And I basically gave you a quick demo on the OpenFiler on how to create it in the lab. Okay. What is data store? Data store is basically C drive of Windows. When you have to save something on a Windows machine, a Word file, an Excel file, basically go to any C drive, D drive, E drive, K drive, L drive, whatever the drive letter is, and you basically save your file over there. Similarly, on ESXi, when you have to create a virtual machine, when you have to save some ISO, basically, where are you going to save it? What is that volume? So basically, the volume is called data store. Okay. What is a virtual machine? I told you virtual machine is a group of files. End of the day, you need to save those files somewhere, no? You need to keep those files somewhere. Which is that place? You're going to keep it where? Where are you going to keep those group of files? Are you going to keep it on a C drive, on a Linux machine? No, you would be saving them on a data store. So you need to basically select a data store on which you will be creating the virtual machine, or where those files will be getting saved. Okay, so I'll choose my data store over here and I'll hit next. Now it is basically saying compatible with. Okay, what does this mean? Very important window. Let me tell you in theory that what exactly it means over here so that you will understand better. So let's take an example that you have, for example, 4 ESXis in your environment. Okay. They are part of the same cluster. They all are in your production cluster. Okay. All the ESXi's are production ESXi's, that is, they are hosting production virtual machines on it. Now, let's say earlier, these physical boxes, these ESXi's, they were running on the version 6.7, a hypothetical situation. Earlier, all these ESXi's were basically running on 6.7. Management asked you to upgrade them to 8.0. Okay. So what you did was you upgraded the first ESXi. Okay. And then the management said, you have upgraded it to 8.0 and rest all the others are basically running on 6.7. Okay. You need to upgrade the other three ESXi's also, but you have only upgraded one for now. Suddenly there is an emergency request that comes in. Okay. Someone says that urgently you need to create a virtual machine. Stop whatever you are doing. Focus on this task which has come right now. And the task is to create a virtual machine. Okay. You would say, okay, I will create a virtual machine. The question is, the virtual machine that you are creating in your environment has the capability that it can run on any ESXi. It can run over here, 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 and here. Okay. So for example, if the virtual machine is running on the first ESXi, and let's say that there is some problem with this ESXi, the power supply has failed, or the RAM cards are failing, or there is some hardware error, on this physical box. So you will have to basically migrate the virtual machine to another ESXi. Okay. So this is, I told you about the vMotion capability on my first class. So I'll basically talk about it later. But you have the functionality wherein you can migrate a virtual machine from one physical box to another physical box with zero downtime. Okay. The end user would not get to know about it. Now you also have a capability wherein VMware, that is system, can take the control. So you basically give the control to VMware and you say VMware that, whatever you feel like, or you can take your own call. And if you would like to move a virtual machine from one ESXi to another ESXi, you can do that. You don't have to ask me, just go ahead and do that. Okay. Now, when you give this control to the system, it might be possible that this virtual machine can also move over here. So earlier, this virtual machine was running on an ESXi version 6.7, but now system decided to move this virtual machine to version 8.0. The question is, will the virtual machine which was running on 6.7, will it work on 8.0? That's what the question is, because there is a huge difference in version. Okay, ESXi 6.7 and 8.0. Okay. So to answer this question, when you are creating a virtual machine, you have an option which is basically called virtual hardware. Whenever you create a virtual machine, you have an option which is called virtual hardware. Virtual hardware basically defines that on which minimum version of ESXi this virtual machine can run. So for example, when you are creating a virtual machine and you basically say that, this virtual machine should run on 8.0 and later. Okay, what is later? So think about it. You have a Windows 11 desktop or a laptop. Okay, and you have another laptop with you which has Windows 10. You have a desktop at home which is running Windows 8. And for example, there is one more machine in your house which is running Windows 7. So for example, in your home, all your family members have one laptop each. Okay, and let's say you are a family of 4. Okay, and everyone has their own laptop, but the versions are different: Windows 11, Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 7. Okay, let's say that you want to have a Adobe Photoshop. let's say you require an Adobe Photoshop. You buy this application. This is all a hypothetical scenario. Okay, I'm just cooking up any story and I'm telling you. Okay, let's say that you want to buy an Adobe Photoshop. So Adobe Photoshop will say that my software that you are buying is basically compatible with Windows 11, Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 7. Okay, so you say great. So this application that you have bought, this setup that you have, the exe file that you have, it can basically work on Windows 7, Windows 8, 10, 11. It can work on any Windows operating system. Why? Because this is backwards compatible. You would have heard this term of backwards compatible. Backwards compatible means that the application can work on Windows 11. Also, it can work on the older operating systems. This is what backward compatibility means. Okay, that you can run the application on the latest operating system, but you can also run it on an older version as well. Anyone has concerns with the term backwards compatible? Anyone who has not understood the term backwards compatible, let me know. Okay. Now, VMware has a term called forwards compatible. What is forwards compatible? Okay. Forwards compatible means forwards compatible. Now we understand what backwards compatible is. Let me talk about forwards compatible. So for example, you have an ESXi which is running the latest version of 8.0. Now, what will be after 8.0? It can be 8.5, it can be 8.7, it can be 9.0, it can be 8.3. We don't know what the next version of VMware would be. Okay. So this is basically um, a guess. I mean, we don't know what the next version would be. However, when you create a virtual machine, okay, during the virtual machine creation, you say that the hardware or the compatibility of this virtual machine should be 8.0 and later. This means to run this virtual machine, you need a minimum version of 8.0. And in future, if 8.1, 8.7, 9.0, whichever version comes out, it will be compatible with that version also. Guys, let's not jump the gun. What Asif is saying, enhanced vMotion compatibility, we are not talking about it. So Sarvan, I'm not answering that question for now. So what we are saying is when we are creating a virtual machine, I will basically define over here that it will be compatible with the version 8.0. This means that for this virtual machine to run, every ESXi should have a minimum version of 8.0. If you have a ESXi which is basically running a version 7.0, then this virtual machine will not be compatible over here. Why? Because this is forwards compatible. Forwards compatible means if you chose the version 8.0, then this means that the virtual machine can only run on ESXi, which has a minimum version of 8.0 and later. And later means anything. In future, whatever comes out, it will be compatible with that. However, it is not compatible with any ESXi host which is below 8.0. That means on 7.0, 6.7, 6.5, it is not compatible with these options. This is what is called forwards compatible. Guys, doubt, confusion, question on this topic of forwards compatible. Okay. So we understand what backwards compatible is, and we understand forwards compatible. This is what is being asked over here. So here they are asking you the virtual machine that you are about to create, it should be compatible with which version. So to choose this version over here, you need to know that what is the version of ESXi and what is the cluster, what are the versions of your ESXi in your cluster. So for example, the scenario that I was telling you earlier, when you have 4 ESXis in your cluster, they all were running 6.7. Okay. You started the upgrade and you finished for one of them. Now an urgent request has come in and they are basically asking you to create a virtual machine. So you basically create a virtual machine. But what about the compatibility? So you will basically choose the minimum ESXi version in your cluster. So the minimum version that you have in your ESXi cluster is 6.7. So you will choose the compatibility as 6.7 and later. Okay, why? Because this virtual machine can reside anywhere. It can reside over here. It can reside over here as well. So it is important for you as a VMware admin to make sure that your virtual machine that you are creating, it can run on any ESXi within your cluster. That is why you will choose the option of 6.7. Okay. Let's take a hypothetical scenario. Let's say that you have 4 ESXis in your environment, and on a weekend, you basically upgrade all of them to 8.0. Now you get a request to create a virtual machine. So now when you have to create a virtual machine, you can basically choose the compatibility as 8.0 and later, because you know that all your ESXis are running a version 8 over here. Okay. So when it comes to choosing the compatibility of the virtual machine that you are creating, look at your cluster. Okay. If your cluster has different versions of ESXi running on it, choose the minimum one when you have to create a virtual machine so that your virtual machine can easily shift from any ESXi to another within the cluster and there will be no impact. Because if you create a virtual machine with 8.0 and you try running it on an ESXi, which is basically on 7.0, it will not work over there. The virtual machine cannot run on an ESXi 7.0 if it has a hardware version or if it has the compatibility of 8.0. This is why it is very important to answer this question that when you are creating the virtual machine, what should be the compatibility be? This is something that you have to look at your cluster. Now, with every compatibility, you basically get a number over here. So for example, you see the number over here, it's version 20. Okay. Now, if you choose a different version over here, for example, if you choose 7.0, then it goes to 19. If you choose update 1, it goes to 18. If it goes to 7.0, it becomes 17. You can go all the way back to 3.5. Here you had the version 4. So you would say that, why should I use 8.0? I can also use 3.5 over here. I'll choose this option. Why should I choose 8.0? Okay. The simple answer to that question is, why are you not running Windows XP right now? Why are you not running Windows 98 right now? Why are you running Windows 11 on your laptop? Why are you running Windows 10 on your laptop? Because on Windows 98 or in Windows XP, if you want to run, absolutely you can run it. Technically, is it possible? Yes, technically it is possible. I can install Windows XP on a laptop. It will work. But what about the bugs? What about the enhancements? What about the performance? What about the capabilities? That is something that you will not get. That is something that you will get whatever Windows XP had to offer. If you choose the latest operating system, Windows 11, then you get the latest functionality, the latest bugs, the latest security, the latest protection, and all that you would get. So definitely you would always choose the latest one. On your mobile phone, you can run a Android 2.3 or 2.2, whatever that old operating systems were. I mean, right now I don't know what is the latest version, but I think it's 13 or 14 of Android. Okay, but the question is that why are you not running the old Android 2.3? Because there will be so many bugs over there. On a phone, we basically do everything, internet banking and placing orders, using our credit card. So you want your phone to be secure. You want the operating system to be secure. That's the reason you should always choose the latest version and not the older version. Now, my question is, does anyone have any doubt on this screen? Once we create a VM with hardware version 20, can we downgrade the hardware version later to yes? to later? No, you cannot downgrade. This is a one-time activity, a permanent activity. You cannot downgrade. This is the answer that you will get officially. But technically, there is a hack. You can go back. If you want, you can go back to 19, 17, 18. Technically, you can do that. But again, the official answer is no, you cannot do that. But technically, you can do that. Anyone has any doubts over here? Okay, I'll move on. Now it is saying that you are about to create a virtual machine. End of the day, on a virtual machine, you will be installing an operating system. Okay. Now, when you have to choose an operating system, generally you would either go with Windows or you would go with Linux. Okay. If you would like to install a Windows operating system on this virtual machine, here is a list. You can choose, which operating system you would like to install. Okay. Now, for example, if you choose Windows 98 over here, okay, you see a message over here. This operating system is no longer supported, and it is a description of terminated. You will have to basically open this VMware KB article, and this KB article will basically tell you that if you are installing Windows 98, what to expect from VMware. Okay, theoretically, you can install Windows 98. I'm not saying that you cannot install Windows 98. You can do it, but are you going to get support? I mean, that's a question. Okay, so for example, you can install a Windows 7 64-bit. However, it says this is a legacy operating system, and with legacy operating system, you would have to look at this KB article that what the description is. If you install a latest operating system, for example, Windows 10, then there is basically no warning or messages over there. Okay. How do I migrate a data center from VCSA 5? So Matthews, there was no VCSA in the version 5. In the version 5, you only had a Windows-backed vCenter. Appliances came in version 6. That was the first time, the appliances were launched. And appliances were always running Linux. An appliance was never running on a Windows platform. So I think your question is, you want to migrate from Windows vCenter to an appliance. That is something that, yes, you can do. That is supported. And there is no challenges over there. Okay, so you will have to basically run that VCSA wizard, and then you have an option of migrate over there, and you can basically choose that, and then you can run it. That should work for you. Okay, so let me quickly show it to you. What you will have to do, you will have to basically come over here, come over here, come over here, and when you will basically go to the vCenter. So this is the option that you need to choose. And this will basically migrate you from a Windows backed vCenter to an appliance. Okay, so moving on. So here you need to specify which operating system you would like to install. So here you can basically choose your operating system, whichever one you would like to install. So for example, I'll say that I want to install a Windows 7 32-bit. Yeah, of course, you can install a Windows 7 32-bit. That's no problem. Okay. Or if you say that I want to install a Windows 2019, of course, you can do that. Now here it is saying that the virtual machine that you are creating, you specified a lot of options. You specified that what should be the name of the virtual machine, where it should reside, what storage, what compatibility, which operating system you're going to run. So similarly, if you want to run a different operating system, Linux, so you have a lot of Linux options that you can choose, that which Linux operating system you would be installing. If you don't know that, if you don't see your operating system over here, then you can choose other also. Then you have FreeBSD, Novell. I don't know if someone would use these operating systems, but you are. If you are, then you can use these as well. Now here you basically need to specify that, how many CPUs and memory and the hard drive that you're going to give to the virtual machine. Kevin, I don't understand when you say that I'm stuck at the data store part. Can you please elaborate? Can you unmute yourself and ask the question? I did not get that part. Sarvana, to answer your question, no, Windows is not available now. In a data store, you can place multiple virtual machines. That is something, if you want, you can do that. Okay. So here, let's say I want to create a virtual machine with 4 vCPUs. I want to give 12 GB of RAM. I want to give a 90 GB hard drive. I can do that. Okay. And which network it should be connected to, how you will get these options, I'll talk about it later. Okay. And then, these are the details that you have. You hit next. And then here is a summary that you will get. Okay. You can verify that, the virtual machine that you're about to create is basically with this name, in this cluster on this ESXi. This is the data store. What is the compatibility? Which operating system you plan to install? How many CPUs and memories? And you want to give what is the hard drive details, that you are giving. You specify all those details over there, and then you hit the button finish. Okay. When you hit the finish button, there will be a task which will run on the vCenter, and it will basically show you that, create virtual machine has got completed. Now, whatever you do on the vCenter, this is very important that there will be a task. Okay. This task should get completed. It should be in green. If there is an error, that means that whatever you were trying to do, that did not go through. You need to verify that why did not it go through? There would be an error over here. And then you basically need to troubleshoot and understand that, why is it not going through? Okay. So once it gets completed, here it will show you that, who basically was doing the task, what was the start time, what was the end time, on which vCenter you were doing it. So it will basically show you all those details over here. Okay. Now, once you have created the virtual machine, here is your virtual machine. Okay. It is currently in the powered off state. Right now, you see the virtual machine, it is powered off. And you have the details that, this is the operating system that you decided to install. VMware tools you have not installed over here. Now, very important thing to keep in mind. When you were creating the virtual machine, you specified over here that you will be installing Windows 2019. Okay. Always stick to it. My point is, if you said that you will be installing Windows 2019, then do make sure that you install 2019 only. Do not install 2016. Do not install 2012. Do not install Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 11, nothing. Whichever operating system you specified, make sure you only install that operating system. If you chose Windows 7 32-bit over here, then make sure that you only install Windows 7 32-bit and not a Windows 7 64-bit. Okay. So my point is, whatever you are specifying over here as an operating system, make sure you only install that operating system. Okay. Technically, if you want to install Windows 2016 over here, it will work. Technically, if you want to install Windows 2012 over here, it will work. But theoretically, as a good practice, should you do that? A big no. You should not do that. Okay? So whichever operating system that you have specified over here, make sure that you only install that operating system. Okay. If you have made a mistake, if you think that, no, I had to install Windows 16, but I accidentally chose Windows 2019 over here, hit the edit button, go to VM options, and, change it over here. Okay. If there is a huge change that you're making, so for example, you say, oh, I had to install a Windows 2003, not a Windows 2019, then my suggestion would be delete the virtual machine, create a new one, and choose Windows 2003, when you are creating the wizard. Why this is important? Let me answer that question now. This is important because whenever you are creating a virtual machine, you see all these other options over here. You see this option over here. They are basically selected on the basis of your operating system. So the operating system that you will choose, that you will specify, a lot of details, VMware will take that into consideration. As per the operating system, VMware will basically give the internal components, the settings that they need. If you are installing a Windows XP and if you're installing a Windows 2019, two different virtual machines, their settings will not be exactly the same. Their settings are going to be different. So that is why I am emphasizing it. And I cannot, tell you the importance that, please do understand it is very important. Okay, keep this in your mind. It is very important. Whichever operating system you are specifying over here, please make sure that you only install that operating system. Okay, always keep this in mind. If you have if you're saying Windows 2019, then do make sure that you install Windows 2019. Okay, all right. Now the question comes, I've created the virtual machine. What do I do? Okay, so the next thing that you need to do is basically install the operating system after creating the virtual machine. Now, how do I do that? First, you need to power on the virtual machine. How do I power on the virtual machine? Simply make a right click on the virtual machine. You see over here, it says you are about to take an action on CDP demo 01. Now here you can have a lot of virtual machines in your environment. Now, for example, you had to power on CDP demo 01 and you accidentally clicked on CDP VCSA 01. You see these actions button over here? It will very clearly tell you on which virtual machine you are about to do your operation or you're about to do the task. So whenever you are doing anything on the virtual machine, make sure the action buttons, is basically showing you the right virtual machine on which you have to make the actions. Okay. Do not get confused over here and do not do a mistake over here. Take a second, take a deep breath, and then do the activity. There is no hurry. There is no race going on that you have to complete this activity within 5 minutes or within 10 seconds or within 20 seconds, and then you will get a trophy or you will get a bonus from your company. Okay. Take some time. Don't be in a rush. Okay. Take a deep breath and then do the job. So when you have to basically power on this virtual machine, make sure that this action button looks okay to you. Okay. Now, when you will go to power, you will have an option of powering on. Similarly, when you click on the actions button over here, you again get the option of powering on. Okay. And you can also click on this button power on. This is basically a shortcut that you have over here. So any three actions that you will do does not make any difference. The VM will basically get powered on. So you can do it from here, you can do it from here, or you can simply click over here. One and the same thing, there is no difference. Now, like I mentioned, whatever you do on the vCenter, there is a task that will get created. So when I power on the virtual machine, there will be a task over here. So I clicked on the button power on. I see over here, initializing power on, task completed, power on virtual machine completed. So this is the way you can get to know that whether the operation of power on virtual machine, was it successful or not? If it was not, it will give you an error, and then you need to basically troubleshoot and understand that why that virtual machine did not go through or what was wrong in it. Okay. All right. Now I've powered on the virtual machine. How do I see what is running in the virtual machine? So if you have a desktop at home and you power on the desktop, now you need to know what is happening in the background. Is Windows loading up? Is it there? Is it not there? Is there some error? So what you do, you basically connect a monitor. So when you connect a monitor, then you know that what exactly is happening on my machine. Okay. How would you know what is running on or what is happening on the virtual machine? So for that, you basically have consoles. So you have got two options over here. The first option is a web console, and the second option is basically a remote console. These are basically two different windows from where you can see what is running. So when you click on this black box over here, it will open up basically the web browser. That is the web console that is on your Firefox or Chrome. Okay. When you will click on it, a new tab will come up, and here it will show you basically what is running within the virtual machine. This is one way of looking at it. The other way is if you need to install launch remote console, for that you need to download a tool. What is that tool? You need to basically go to VMRC download. Just go to Google and type VMRC download. What is VMRC? Virtual Machine Remote Console. Go to the first URL of VMRC of VMware, and from here you need to download a tool. Okay, you need to install the tool where on your local machine, because end of the day, how would you access this vCenter URL? Of course, you will have some machine with you, no? You will have a laptop or a desktop, and from that desktop, you will basically access this URL. So from whichever machine you have, from whichever machine you are basically currently have, and from where you want to open this console, on that machine, you need to install the VMRC console. So this VMRC, this product over here, you see this VMRC, VMware Remote Console. This is basically is available in two versions. It's available in Linux and in Windows. For Mac, if you have a Mac operating system, then you can basically go to the Apple Store and then you can get it from there. Okay. So end of the day, we only have three operating systems: Windows Windows Mac, or Linux. Okay. So you can basically choose whichever one you have, and you can basically download it from over there. So when you download it on a Windows, so like I am sitting on a Windows machine, okay? So I need to install it for my Windows. When you do the installation, you just basically need to download this wizard. There will be an EXE file. Keep hitting next, 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 and install it. When you will install it, then this is the way it will show you in your add and remove programs. This is the way it will come up. Virtual machine remote console. It will be installed on your local machine. After you have installed this tool, now you can go back and click on the button launch remote console. It will automatically pick that you have the remote console VMRC installed on your machine. You basically say okay. It will say that do you want to trust the certificate? You say always trust the certificate and connect anyway. And this is another way you can look at it, what is running on your virtual machine. So you basically have two different consoles. You basically have two different views from where you can see that what is running on the virtual machine. Okay. Now, so I basically powered on the virtual machine. I've opened the console. And of course, there is no operating system over here. Okay. The question is, how do I install the operating system over here? Okay. So to install the operating system, you don't have one, you have multiple options. Okay. So what would happen is, in today's world, you will basically have an ISO file. So for everything, you basically have an ISO file. Gone are the days, you will have a physical DVD or a physical Blu-ray device or something, and then you do the installation. Those things don't happen now. Everything is digital now. So you will basically have an ISO file. Now you can keep this ISO file wherever you feel like. You can have it on your local machine. You can go to the data store, and in the data store, you can basically create a folder. For example, over here, you can call it ISOs. Sorry, you can go to a folder. You can go to your data store, you can call an ISO, you can create a folder, and then you can create, and then you can keep a lot of, different ISOs over here. Okay. You want to have it on your local machine, that is something that you can also do. Now, for example, if you have uploaded the ISO on your data store, then what you can do is you can go to the virtual machine settings, go to the CD DVD drive option, and you see the option over here, data store ISO file. So you are basically saying that your ISO is basically residing on a data store. So you will click over there, and then it will show you all your data stores that you have in your environment. So for example, on my SATA hard drive, on my SATA data store, I have got my ISOs over here. I'll choose the ISO option. I will scroll down. I will choose Windows over here. And then I would choose Windows 2019. Okay. I would hit OK. And now it basically shows me that, I have mapped a Windows 2019 ISO. I need to make sure that this is connected. I'll put a check over here for both of them. I'll hit the OK button. Again, a task is going to run, a task is going to get completed, reconfigure the virtual machine because I added the ISO. I did something intentionally. So that is why I need to make sure that my task is completed. Whenever you do any activity, double check your work. Make sure that is that ISO definitely connected or not. So you can go back, just make sure that yes, the ISO is connected. Now you can open the console and you see this button over here that says send, control, or delete. Okay. Now you need to reboot this virtual machine so that it picks up the ISO, and then it can boot from it, and eventually you can do an installation. So simply click on the button, send Control Alt Delete. Now it says press any key to boot from CD DVD. You basically follow the basic windows, and then you basically start loading up the files, and you begin with the installation. This is one of the ways you can install the operating system on a virtual machine. Now, always keep in mind, whenever you are installing an operating system on a physical machine or you're installing it on a virtual machine, basically there is no difference over there. VMware is not intentionally making any changes in your operating system ISO. Okay, so if you have mounted a Windows ISO over here, VMware is not going to do anything over there. It will just basically, just mount the ISO the way it is. In nowhere, and nothing VMware is doing to manipulate or to change this ISO file. Be absolutely sure about it. Okay, VMware is doing nothing over here. And here, basically, the installation will begin. Again, this is a standard Windows installation. Nothing fancy, nothing major that you're doing over here. And the installation will begin. That's the one way of doing it. Doubts, confusion, questions so far. If you have any, please let me know. Okay. Now let me show you on how do I install the operating system from a different way. Okay, so this operating system installation is going on. Let that go on. Okay. The other way of installing an operating system would be, so for example, I'll create another virtual machine over here. And I would give it a name, test Linux, for example. Sorry, I'll say CDP test Linux 01. On which ESXi it should run, on which data store it should run, what is the compatibility, which operating system you would like to have. For example, I'll say I'll go ahead with a CentOS 6. How many vCPUs it should have, 4, how much RAM it should have, 12 GB, what is the hard drive it should have, for example, 20 GB. Okay, I'll specify the details over here, which network it should be connected to. I can choose the network over there. Okay, and then I'll hit next. I'll hit finish. Okay, I create my virtual machine. Not right now. What is thin provisioning? Later. If I tell you now, you will get confused. We'll talk about it, all the options, but step by step. So now what do I need to do? Again, I've created the virtual machine. I need to install the operating system. So what do? I power on the virtual machine. Now again, there will be a task. It will power on the virtual machine. That's fine. Now I need to use remote console and show you on how to install the operating system. So again, I'll choose this option over here of remote console. Now here, I have the ISO file, which is basically residing with me. Okay, I need to mount this ISO. Now this ISO is on my local machine. So what I would do is I will basically go to VMRC over here on this button, go to manage virtual machine settings over here, go to CVD, DVD drive, check both the options, and I would say use ISO image file. Where is that file? That's on my local machine. I will choose CentOS 6. I'll hit the OK button. Now this is basically doing a mapping. Okay. Once the mapping is done, I will hit Control Alt Delete. And now basically I will begin the installation of CentOS 6. Okay. So you can map the ISO file. You can keep it on a data store, and then you can basically do the installation. Or if you have the ISO file locally on your machine, you can even do that. And then you can basically just go ahead, open VMRC console, map the ISO, and just begin with the installation. That is something that you can do as well. Okay. So both the options are available. Whichever one you are okay with, you can basically go ahead and just, use those options over there. No usable disk was found. This is because, I might have a different controller. Um, it found it now. I would have to specify a password. So for example, I'll say whatever the password you want to give, use anyway, next, write changes to disk, and I begin formatting my disk. So end of the day, when you map the ISO to the operating system, two things you need to keep in mind. First, whichever operating system you have specified, during the virtual machine creation, please make sure that you only install that operating system. Okay. And the next thing that you need to keep in mind is from where are you going to do the mapping of the ISO file. End of the day, for the operating system installation to happen on the virtual machine, you just basically need to map an ISO file. It basically depends on you that where you want to give that ISO file. You can basically give the ISO file wherever you feel like. Okay, just map it somewhere, get it to the virtual machine, and then you can basically do the installation. Okay. Now, once the installation is done, you will have to basically log in over here. So you can just log in with the credentials that you specified, and your OS installation is done, and you are basically on the main window. Okay. So what we have done so far, we have created a virtual machine. I powered it on, and I mounted and mapped an ISO, and I installed the operating system. Now this network is basically on DHCP. That is why it was able to pick up an IP, and a normal Windows has come up. Okay. Now you see over here that if I take you, there is nothing on the operating system. There is no application which is installed over here. And if I take you over here, what you see, VMware tools are not running, not installed. You remember I told you that, if you are creating a virtual machine on VMware Workstation, like we did yesterday, or if you are creating a virtual machine over here on an ESXi, it is important that after the installation of the operating system, the next thing that you need to do is you
Hello.
basically, yeah, go for it.
Yes, sir. I have one more query.
Mhm,
You had told about that DHCP, no? It will take automatically in that server.
mhm, mhm.
While installing that ESXi from that server automatically or from our router itself, it will take automatically.
From the router, wherever you have configured the DHCP server, from it will pick
Okay.
up the
From
IP from
EXSI
there.
and VM as well, same IP series.
Correct. It depends on you which network the virtual machine is connecting to.
Okay. Okay.
On that segment, you have DHCP or not.
Okay. While creating the DHCP, it will take automatically. Okay. I done.
So now when you have
Thank you.
created the virtual machine, no problem. So now when you have created the virtual machine, install the operating system, the next thing that you need to do is you need to basically install VMware tools. Okay. Like I mentioned yesterday, when you have to install VMware tools, there should be no doubt in your mind that whether should I do it or whether should I not do it. Okay, like I said yesterday, we get up in the morning and brush our teeth. That is something that you do by default. There is no second thought to it that should I brush my teeth or not. Similarly, when you create a virtual machine, there should not be a second thought that whether should I install VMware tools or not. The obvious answer is absolutely yes, you need to install VMware tools. There is no questions of if and but should I do this or should I not do this. So you have to install the VMware tools. Okay. So to install VMware tools, all that you have to do is basically click on Actions. go to guest OS and you see this option over here, install VMware tools, just click on this button. And you would see the option of mount, and you basically click on mount. Now, when you would go over here, you basically see your ESXi, your VMware tools. So remember yesterday we basically spoke about what VMware tools is. VMware tools is basically drivers for the operating system, because operating system does not know that whether it is running on a physical machine or a virtual machine. So the operating system to work properly, it needs drivers like USB, audio, video, network, display, controller, motherboard, and blah, 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 blah. All those drivers are needed. Who's going to give the drivers to a virtual machine, to the virtual operating system? Of course, VMware will give, and that is why you need to install VMware tools over here. Okay. This has basically all the drivers. So to install VMware tools, all that you have to do is basically double click and go ahead with the installation. Now the question is, from where did this ISO got mounted? Or what happened in the background that this ISO got mounted? Let me answer that question. Okay. So what will basically happen is when you install an ESXi, there is a specific location where these tools are already placed. So ESXi already has Windows VMware tools and Linux VMware tools in its own location. It already has the ISOs with it. Okay. When you create a virtual machine and you say that, I will be installing Windows operating system over here. And when you say that, mount VMware tools, so basically ESXi will look at it that which operating system you have installed over here. So what you have described or what you gave over here, accordingly, ESXi will basically mount the ISO file. So that is why it is important that when you specify Windows, do install that same operating system and not the Linux one. Okay. So the same ISO file, which is basically residing over here, ESXi will pick this Windows ISO file and mount it to this Windows machine. And that is why you see this VMware tools mounted over here. This came over here because ESXi has done this activity, because ESXi mounted the ISO on this virtual machine. That is why this option came over here. Okay. So now all that you have to do, double click on it and just keep hitting next. Don't make any changes over here. Can we install VMware tools for multiple host VMs at once? If I have thousands of VMs are running on a single cluster, it will help. So Raj, the first question is, would you wait for 1,000 virtual machines, to install VMware tools together? Because like I mentioned over here, as soon as you install the operating system, the next thing that you do is basically create or install VMware tools. Okay. If, for example, you are creating a lot of virtual machines and you want to install, VMware tools in parallel, via scripting, you can do that. VMware has also got tools, which is basically called ARIA automation. That is a paid tool that will give you this flexibility on to do that. However, if you want to do it manually, then you need to script it. If I want to upgrade the VMware tools to the latest version, this is the latest version. Okay, if you want to download the VMware tools from the VMware portal and then you want to install them on the virtual machine, you can absolutely do that, but you need to verify the compatibility. Just make sure that those VMware tools are compatible with the ESXi. For now, guys, just think about it. Whichever VMware tools you're installing over here, they are basically corresponding to your ESXi and they will be latest over here. And now you see over here, the progress says installation in progress. Okay. So all that you have to do, keep hitting next, install it and go ahead with the installation. You see all these drivers are getting installed. Once VMware tools are installed, the next thing that you need to do is you need to reboot the virtual machine. It is absolutely mandatory. Okay, so whenever VMware tools installation is done, go ahead with the reboot, because this virtual machine is still not running in production. This is a new virtual machine. You are just creating it. You are just deployed the operating system. So there's nothing major running on it. So go ahead with the installation. Once the installation is done, you can come back, log in over here. If I can type the password. Okay. And now basically, when you come over here, and now when you run this way, now you would see that your VMware tools are installed, and basically 2 additional supported libraries also got installed with it. This is the way it would happen. Okay. If I have 100 VMs to install the prod environment, what will I do? I mean, there are so many ways you can, this is a topic we'll talk not about today. So if you have to create 100 virtual machines, what the options available are, I'll talk about it in the next class. But there is an option, absolutely, to answer your question. Okay, so once this installation is done, now you see this window, this is basically not completely full. So what you can do, you can click on view full screen. You see that entire screen basically takes up the ratio. And here you can have the complete view of the operating system. Okay. So this is the way you can install the operating system. It basically installs the Windows drivers, because of which the screen resolution is now big. And that is why you see, that entire monitor of yours basically covering the Windows operating system. Now you will basically come back over here and you would see that running version 12294, which is basically the VMware tools version, and it basically says current over here, which is basically you're running the latest VMware tools over here. Okay. Now, after the VMware tools installation, there is something else I want to show you. If you see the name of this operating system, you see this fancy name over here, Win, SVS, JC, something, blah, 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 blah. And if you check the IP address over here, this is the IP that it has. Okay. Now, these details you would also find on the VMware console. So you see the DNS name and the IP address right now is blank. Just do a refresh over here, and it will basically show. Now, the question is that how vCenter knows about it. How did vCenter get to know about the DNS name and the IP address of the machine? Because you have VMware tools installed over here. This information was basically shared by VMware tools to the ESXi, because of which this information is populated over here. Keep in mind, there's something that I want to tell you. When you have an ESXi, okay, and on that ESXi, you create a virtual machine, okay. For example, you installed Windows or Linux, whichever operating system on earth you installed over here, that's fine. ESXi cannot look inside the virtual machine. Always keep that in mind. Okay. ESXi has no capability to see that, which OS are you running, which application are you running, which processes are you running, what is happening within the operating system. Is it healthy? Is it failed? Is it up? Is it running? There is no way ESXi can do that. Okay, ESXi has no capability to do that. However, when you install VMware tools over here, ESXi has a back channel to talk to VMware tools. So if you look at the documentation, VMware says ESXi can talk to the VMware tools which are installed on a virtual machine through a back channel, encrypted back channel. There are no further details given that how you would figure out or what is that back channel. If you want to have a look at it, is there a way that you can see? If you want to block this communication, can this happen? VMware has absolutely not shared all these details. All they have said is that ESXi can talk to the VMware tools through an encrypted back channel. This is all that they have specified over here. Okay, so VMware tools basically shared the information of the OS name, of the OS IP with the ESXi. ESXi basically shared it with the vCenter, and that's the reason you can see this over here. Okay. Why two IPs? Because the other one is an IPv6. That's the reason you see over here. If you disable IPv6, then it will basically go away and it would not come up over there. So that is something that you can do as well. You can come over here, go to properties. You see IPv6, simply uncheck it, hit OK. And in a minute, that information will go away. Okay. Now, there is another benefit of installing VMware tools. What is the other benefit? Let me show you that. So for example, this Windows 2019 machine that you have, I ask you to reboot it. Okay, I want you to reboot your operating system. How would you do that? You would simply click on the start button, you would go to the power button, and then you would see an option of restart. You will hit the restart button, do the operating system formalities, and then you see over here, stopping services, rebooting. It is basically doing a graceful shutdown. It is basically doing a graceful restart. That is, the operating system will make sure that it has to close out all the services, it has to stop all the processes, and then gently, in a polite manner, it will basically go ahead and restart the operating system. This is what it will do. Okay. However, this is something that you did inside the operating system. Okay. This is something that you basically had to log into the virtual machine, and then from the virtual machine, from their operating system, you went ahead and you basically restarted the operating system. This action can be performed from the vCenter console as well. Okay. How? Because you have VMware tools which are running over here. Now you see the IPv6 has gone away. There was only IPv4 because I unchecked IPv6. Okay. Now, if I want to restart the virtual machine from the vCenter portal, I have to go on Actions. I need to go on Power, and then you see the option of restart the operating system. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you see these shortcuts over here, Control Alt R, Control Alt Delete, Control Alt T, Z, E. Please do not use them in production. Okay. Just think about it as if they are not here. Because one wrong combination and you can, power off the machine, or you can basically jeopardize the production environment. Okay, please don't do that. So my suggestion would be, please do not try all these, simple key combinations over here. Don't do that. Okay. Whenever you have to do something, just simply click on this option over here, but do not try this fancy option. But, let me try this and, let me, try to make a statement or something. Please don't do that. Okay. If you want to restart the operating system, simply click on Power and click on the Restart Guest OS. It says that, are you sure you want to restart the operating system? I say yes. Now you see over here, again, the same thing is happening. Gentle, graceful way of shutting down the operating system. Why the operating system got powered down when I triggered the command from the vCenter? Because it had VMware tools. So basically what you trigger from here goes to VMware tools, and VMware tools basically gets the instruction from the vCenter, buddy, you need to reboot this operating system. Then VMware tools will basically talk to the operating system, and then operating system will do the thing and will basically restart the operating system. Okay. So this is what is happening. So when you install VMware tools, you also get the flexibility that you do not have to log into the operating system. Simply click over here and do your job. Same thing can happen with the shutdown of guest OS as well. If you want to shut down the operating system for some activity that you're doing, simply trigger the command from there. It will say stopping services, shutting down, whatever it has to do the gentle way, and it will go off. And you would see the options over here. You see, earlier I'd initiated the reboot, and now I initiated the shutdown of the operating system. And now it says that your virtual machine is off. So without having to go in the operating system, I was able to do it from the vCenter console. Why? Because VMware tools are installed. Keep that in mind. Okay. Now I'll simply power on the machine again.
Sir, I have another question.
Go for it.
If I want to install IPv6 regarding means replace of the IPv4, is it possible?
Where?
In that in the when in the VMware
On the
when I'm
ESXi?
installing the project. Yes,
Yes.
ESXi or in the VMware.
So no. So don't use the term VMware. VMware is the
Sorry,
name of the company.
company.
Yeah.
ESXi.
So
Yeah.
ESXi or the virtual machine. That's the correct nomenclature. Okay. So if you
Right.
want to install if you want to have IPv6 on ESXi, you can do that. If you want to have the IPv6 in a virtual machine, it basically depends on the operating system. End of the day, the operating system that you install, Linux, Windows, Mac, or whatever under the sun, that is not in VMware's control. VMware does not look after the operating system. It is giving you a platform to host your operating system.
Operating system, right?
Okay. So whichever your operating system capability is, it will basically depend on that. But on the ESXi level, yes, you can have IPv6. Now, the other option that you have over here is basically you have an option of power off. What is power off? So for example, you have a desktop. Okay. You have a desktop which is up and running, working fine. You go at the back of the CPU and you basically pull the power plug. Okay. So if you have a desktop which is running and you go behind that desktop and you basically pull the power plug, what will happen? The OS will instantly shut down. Similarly would happen over here. So when you say the button power off, here no graceful shutdown is going to happen. Think about it. In a physical environment, if you have a desktop and you pull the power plug, what will happen to the operating system, to the machine? Similarly would happen over here with the virtual machine. Okay. So when you hit the button power off, it says, are you sure you want to power off the virtual machine? You say yes. You see the option, virtual machine power off. No graceful shutdown, no shutting down, no logging off, nothing. It basically pulls the plug and the VM goes straight into the powered off mode. This is what the power off will do. Okay. Again, you should never go ahead and you should, never power off at the first option, because if you power off the virtual machine the forceful way, there are chances that the operating system might get corrupt. Okay. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. Okay. So you don't see these options over here. They will automatically come in a minute. Just wait for a minute. Let the virtual machine initialize, and then all these options will come up. The second option you have is suspend. What is suspend? Suspend basically means, for example, you have logged onto this virtual machine over here. And let's say that you have few tasks which are open over here. Okay. Now, if you want to halt your virtual machine the way it is, you can do that. So for example, in Windows, you would have heard about hibernate or sleep. Okay. You can put your machine to sleep, and then when required, you can wake it up and you can resume your work from there. Similarly, is the option with suspend. So suspend basically means that whatever you have over here, let me initiate a ping over here. So if I initiate a continuous ping to this IP, there is Windows firewall because of which the ping is not going through. Let me disable the Windows firewall. Okay. So if you now suspend the virtual machine, what would happen is you come to power, you come to suspend, and it says that, are you sure you want to suspend the virtual machine? You say yes. Okay. Now suspend virtual machine, basically a task will trigger and the pings will basically time out. Now what is happening is It is not shutting down the operating system. The operating system is basically going in a freeze state. Okay. Whatever was running on the operating system, basically that has been frozen. Okay. That has gone in a deep sleep. Okay. And when you wake up the virtual machine, when you bring it back to life again, when you wake it up, then basically whatever you had running on the virtual machine will come back from that exact process and the pings will resume again. Okay. This is what suspend will do. Theoretically, nobody uses suspend option in the production. So whenever you are concerned with the production virtual machines, you basically power it off or you power it on or you reboot it. Nobody does a suspend. I mean, I've hardly seen, any practical use case of using a suspend. Okay. This is an option. You should know, what the option does. But again, it is not important that you have to use all the options of VMware. VMware has a lot of options. They have to cater for all their customers. So this vCenter will be used by someone, like us in the lab. And it will also be used by customers who are basically, paying VMware, hundreds and thousands of dollars, as, license or, paying for the services. Okay. Now here I can power on the machine again. Everything has basically got frozen over there. And you see the pings are back. When you would go over here, you would see basically everything coming back to life. This is what basically suspend and power on will do. Any limit for this? How many days we can keep the VM in the suspend option? Any recommendation? My question is, Raj, why would you put the machine in the suspend state? That's the first question. What is your use case? Why are you putting the machine in the suspend? Okay. Generally in production, you will never do that. If you have to machine in put in suspend, there is no limitation in terms of after 7 days you have to bring it back to life or you will lose everything. Nah, nothing like that sort. You want to put the machine in suspend, your machine, your environment, do what you have to. Yeah, but generally nobody does. Then you have the other option, which is basically a reset. What is a reset? Now, again, I'll take you back to the desktop. So on desktop, you have a power button, and next to the power button, you basically have a small button, which is basically a reset button. Reset button means killing the power to the desktop and restoring the power again. Okay, so you basically kill the electricity supply to the desktop, and then you basically give the electricity supply back to the desktop. This is what a reset is. Similarly, would happen over here as well. So we basically shut down the virtual machine by pulling the power plug, and then we basically put the power plug back, and you power on the machine again. So when you hit the button reset, are you sure you want to do a reset? I say yes. The virtual machine goes down, and then you see the virtual machine starts booting up. So when it goes down, there is no graceful, no gentle way. I mean, it is basically pulling the power plug and just killing the virtual machine and then bringing it back online. This is what it means. Okay. And then you have the last option over here, which is hard stop. Now, what is hard stop? Okay. Hard stop basically means, let's take an example over here. Okay. So for example, you have a virtual machine. It is running Windows operating system. Okay. You basically say, shut down the VM. And let's say OS got hung. For some reason, the virtual machine, the operating system is not shutting down. Now what will you do? You will basically say power off. After some time when nothing is working, then you will basically try a power off. And you will say power off the virtual machine. That also does not work. You basically say reset the virtual machine. That also does not work. Now what do? Earlier, you basically had to kill the virtual machine from the command line. Why? Because virtual machine is running as a process on the ESXi. ESXi is backed by Linux. So in Linux, if anything hangs, you basically kill it. You kill the process and that thing goes down. Similarly, you do in Windows also, you can end the process. So here virtual machine is running as a process on the ESXi. Let me show you on how does it look like. So we need to log into my ESXi. How? Via an SSH. Okay, so there you are. Let me log into my ESXi. I will log in as root and I'll put the password. And here I have a command ESXCLI. Okay, I need to run the command ESXCLI VM process list. And then you see this VM CDP demo 1. This is the process. The virtual machine running on the ESXi is basically a process. And then you see the world ID over here. Okay. Earlier, when the virtual machine was not responding, you basically had to come to the command line and then you had to kill this process. This is what you had to do. Now they have given this option on the UI, which is basically hard stop. Hard stop basically means killing the process from the command line. So you basically kill the process from command line, or you do the hard kill, hard stop. It's basically one and the same thing. There is no difference over there. Okay. So here you would click on the button hard stop. It basically gives you a big warning telling you in a nutshell, buddy, you are going to kill the process. Everything will be lost. The OS will be instantly shut down. You want to do this? It says that my suggestion will be try the graceful method first. Okay, and it basically gives you the article. And then it says that, are you sure you want to do a hard stop? Absolutely confirmed. You say yes. Okay. And then what would happen is hard stop virtual machine. It basically kills the process. And now when you will go back, this machine would have gone away. This machine would not be there. Then you have this Linux one, but that CDP one is gone because the process has been killed. This is what happens in the power options. Okay. That was all that I basically wanted to talk about today. So at the same time, how many users are able to log into the vCenter with the same login ID? So you could have up till 50 sessions. The by default session is 50. You could have 50 sessions. People can log in. If you want, you can increase that. That's a soft limit. That's not a hard limit. Okay, so that was all that I wanted to talk about today. Let's meet on next weekend, and we'll continue from here. There are so many things that I have to talk about. I've barely scratched the surface for now. So too many things to talk about on how do you manage the environment and what to do and what not to do. So before we end the call, doubts, confusion, question. Anything which was not clear to you, please let me know. Again, guys, just to reiterate, this is a Zoom call, right? I mean, there is no way for me to verify that whether have you understood or not. If you don't tell me, I would presume that you know. Okay, this is not a physical class. So if you don't ask, I would presume that you guys understand.
The free rack sessions would be given or not?
Sorry?
Free rack session, the training.
Yeah, that basically goes on YouTube, no? So you can check out there.
Yeah, but the CDP network, they told me we can given for 400 credit, but how can you use this?
Hello? Yeah, hello, you can contact to the admin team regarding for the racks. Monday onward, we'll hand over to the racks.
Okay. So basically the paid classes started from 16th, right?
Yeah, correct. The paid batch will be starting on 16. I request everybody to give us a feedback to the Vikas sir. So we already shared a feedback form on this chat.
Okay, sure.
And guys, just a humble request. No problem. Just a humble request. If you guys can please share your feedback, that will be nice for me on Google.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you.
If you could please do that. You would see the link on the chat coming up. So yeah, it would be nice for me. Any other question anyone has? Let me know. All right, guys. I'll see you on next weekend. There are so many things to talk about, and yeah, feel free to contact me if you have any further queries during the week. Okay. You take care.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you on next weekend. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.